As usual, giving a moment for people to get in, and then we're gonna see what's happening with Morgana and Giselle and what's left. Na 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 na. Also, once again, just thanks to everyone who joins me for these, because it means a lot, honestly. Okay. Let's start then. Oh, that every time I hear this music, it just swells and, like, you know, fills up like everything in your head. You haven't told me about your age. My age? Take a guess. I thought you would tell me anything. Okay, let's see. I'm 20 maybe. Alright, let's hit, or do we go with the option and say that she's 30? Wow, you're exactly right. You're surprisingly astute, Master. And what's surprising about that? I didn't expect you to get it on your first try. Have you been secretly watching me? Oh, Master, you're making me blush. Why the silent death stare? I'm struck with an overwhelming urge to hurl you out of a window. Oh, you're no fun. Okay, it's your turn now. How old are you, Master? As I recall, I should be 27 this year. Oh, wow, you're much older than I expected. What did you expect? You are very mellow, like I would expect of an older man. But every once in a while, you give the impression of a teenage boy. For what it's worth, I mean that in a good way. For what it's worth. Na 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 na. There is something to that. He's been here for 10 years, and you can't, more than that. You can't imagine that, you know, he must have had a, you know, how long he had to, you know, stay there, live, and, you know, there's a certain thing where when you lack a childhood where you kind of want to grasp that back, or like, if you have the opportunity to, right? I'm sure you all can guess why that might be significant. You want to know about my family? We were pretty normal, I think. Not much interesting about us. We had been able to get citizenship in the capital, but we weren't super rich or anything. In fact, it was because we were having money troubles that I ended up here. It's not easy for 3 women to make it on their own. You didn't have a father or any brothers? No, we lost my father to the plague when I was young. And since then, it's been me, my mother, and my older sister. But they're both bright, lively people. Our family motto is a smile can make anything better. Maybe that explains why she can still smile now, even after nearly succumbing to despair. I've always kind of wanted some brothers, though. Men are more suited to physical labor, yes? Not quite what I was going for. I feel like, I don't know, kind of things you would ask a brother and a sister for help with are different. Not sure how to explain it, but a guy with broad shoulders and muscular arms is someone you can look up to, for instance. Someone who looks like they'd always keep you safe. She's never been betrayed by family, it would seem. She can't even imagine family hurting her. She has no idea that those closest to you, those who are supposed to care about you more than anything, can be your greatest enemies. That blood is a bond heavier than any chain. Master? I believe your brothers are still on your side. It's been so long, I don't know if they are. I don't know what they think about me anymore. I'm sure they're still your allies. You want to believe, don't you? You want to believe they're not your enemies. Let's believe in them together then. Anything you want to believe, you should. It's such a better way to look at the world than the other way around. You have to be positive or one day you'll crack. Always remember to have faith so that doesn't happen. I don't understand. She's honest about her emotions in a way I simply cannot be. She's the exact opposite of me in that regard, and yet she can still read me. I don't get it. How can she understand me like that? It's like she can read my mind. If only I could just tell her everything. Make it another page in her mindless chatter. Get everything weighing down on me off my chest. Is something the matter? You're cruel. What? I said you're cruel. I'm sorry, ignore me. In preparation for the day you can finally go back home, you're going to have to stop being such a picky eater. Where did that come from? Think about how terrible it would be if, when that day finally came, you went back sickly and weak and emaciated. You wouldn't be able to enjoy yourself. You're still alright, Master. You're doing okay. So let's try to keep you healthy. Ooh, what's Giselle's preferences? Oh wow, how forward of you. Huh? My taste in men is the last thing I expected you to ask about, Master. I don't recall specifying people. Now, don't fret the details. It's only natural to be curious, so let's make it about that. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. Alright then, tell me about your first crush, Master. And I have to start? I never had one. What? No, I'm not buying it. You were living home until 10 years ago, weren't you? Surely there was someone who caught your eye. There was not. Without missing a beat. Oh fine, then I'll go. My first crush was the son of a blacksmith. You missed the part where you asked, what kind of guy was he? It's such a pain. Since you asked, he was a huge, muscular fella. He was so tall he would always hit his head on the doorway whenever he came to our shop to trade. Oh. Nice, beefy guys really are great, huh? They make your heart get all fluttery and tight. Himbo appreciator Giselle. Aren't trying to imply I don't have a chance. Though I think that was more admiration than love. You know, the way a group of girls would get together and fawn over a popular good-looking guy, it was like that. So you're saying the buff bastard was popular? Very much so. I wonder what love feels like. Never got the chance to find out before ending up like this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get all dormant. Say whatever's on your mind. I don't deserve your consideration. It was my family that put you through that. After all. Perhaps it is my reticence that causes her to watch her step around me. Damn. Need to come up with something to say. When I was 14... Oh. You asked about my first crush. I knew you had one. Oh, so tell me, what was she like? She was the daughter of a noble family. Her name was Amy. Amy? And she was a year older than me. Ah, love between nobility. World I can only even imagine. It never went anywhere. What? You didn't try to woo her? You didn't try to shower her presents? Were you by chance a late bloomer, master? She was my brother's fiancée. Oh, I see. So it was love that could never be realized. That's sad. Not really. Besides, I don't feel anything for her anymore. What I felt then was just impulses. I guess that makes both of us inexperienced. I suppose it does. Okay, I think that's enough of that. So it is. Do you like being here? Okay, I just need one. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Of course I love it here. Being with you, being able to talk to you like this. See, that I don't understand. Why not? Found it difficult to believe there exists any reason speaking with me would be anything but unpleasant. You're so negative. Oh, hush. Say that, for example, instead of me, there was someone not so pessimistic here. You'd rather be talking to them, wouldn't you? I really do enjoy this, truly. I will admit, my time down the village was for the most part delightful. But oh, how should I put this? I started realizing, yeah, I'm kind of forcing myself to fit that image. I'm trying to convince myself that's okay. But somehow when I'm here, there's none of that. I wonder why that is. I certainly wouldn't know. I suppose you wouldn't. I know, maybe I think of you as a kid now. Come again? I love talking to kids. What? Hey, now, don't give me that one. What I'm trying to say is, you're very sincere, Master. You're not going to smile and stab me in the back when I turn the other way. And relax around you, which is nice. I see. Ah, you just blushed, didn't you? You're blushing, you adorable little thing. It's alright, you're allowed to fall for me. Is there any window in particular you'd like to be thrown out of? Ah, no fun at all. See what I say, Master? With just a sort of conversation, I know you better than I did before, and you me. That's fine and well, but what do I do with the knowledge? You don't do anything with it. It's fun learning things you didn't know before. That's all there is to it. And what happens when there's nothing left to learn? That's a day I don't think will ever come. People are always changing, growing, and there's no limit to what you can know about them. There's always something new to discover. Maybe we'll be here for many more years, or maybe you'll be able to go home sooner than you expect. But either way, I hope we can keep getting to know each other until then. And of course, if you're open to it, it doesn't have to end there. We can continue getting to know each other for years to come. And hey now, what are you looking away from? What do you think? Because you keep throwing me off balance. A few months ago I was doing everything in my power to avoid her. Yet now that smile of hers seems so oddly enchanting. I don't understand. I will do my best so that we can make this work. I'm glad to hear it. Giselle, I was too awkward back then to even compliment you on your smile, to put my feelings into words. I was too cynical to accept what you said at face value, which I know caused you plenty of grief. I'm not much better now than I was then, but I will tell you this. When I next see you, I want more than anything to let you know how much I adore your smile, and how much I don't want to lose you, or ever again. You must never reclaim your old selves. Become my loyal servants, always by my side, and curse them with me, my dears. Eternal suffering on all their souls. My consciousness, wavering like a ship at sea, is slowly drawn back to the surface. With each new breath, feeling gradually returns to my fingers. I can hear the pattering of rain from somewhere, and the sound of crackling fire. Creak. Foley work. Splurt, splurt, splurt. It takes a moment for me to realize I'm in the very same spot when I first awoke. I don't know how I got here, but I'm just sitting in a rocking chair, hunched forward. My head feels like someone filled with rocks, and I'm having difficulty focusing. My joints are creaking and I feel like I'm gonna vomit. A suffocating odor hangs over the room. What is this? Giselle! Giselle! Everything comes back to me all at once. That's right, I watched Morgana kidnap her. I watched the witch drag her into the darkness, unable to reach her hand. Where are you, Morgana? I know you're here. They're cackling as you look down upon me. Say something, witch! I will find you, and I will take her back. What on earth? There's a pool of liquid at my feet, rising just short of my ankles. It's sticky and uncomfortably warm. Every step I take makes splat, splat noises. This is blood. The mansion has taken a very different face from when Giselle was leading me through its halls. Blood of unknown origin not only covers the floors, but also streams down the walls and drips from the ceiling. I'm speechless as I behold the dreadful scene. Every breath I take smells and tastes of rust. It's all so unreal, beyond my comprehension. All I can do is stare aghast, feeling like I might pass out. Giselle, are you seeing this? The same twisted nightmare as me? An image of her floating alone in a vast sea of blood flashes through my mind. That vision kicks me into motion. I promise I will comfort you. So please just hang in there for a little longer. I begin walking, or more accurately dragging my heavy feet forward. The constant splashing of blood against my ankles grates at my already taut nerves. Morgana told me to find my way to her, and I can think of only one place she would be. She and Giselle must be there. The stained glass window is spattered with blood too. It creates trails like streams of tears running down the Archangel's face. I give the window a brief glance before making my way to the door leading to the observation tower. However, why won't it open? There shouldn't be a lock. So why? Lustrous black chains seal the metal door. I can recall no such obstruction present during either my life or my time hereafter. What on earth is going on in this house? No, that's not important right now. What matters is making it through this door. Damn it! I pull and I push, but the chains won't give an inch. They feel sturdy enough that I probably couldn't cut through them either. There has to be some way. I consider giving up here and scouring the rest of the house, but I'm convinced the tower's my best chance. The fact that it's sealed now when it hadn't been before feels like a challenge more than a deterrent. I trace the length of the chain with my hands, and at the end I find a peculiar looking lock, into which ends of several chains have been fed. There are 3 keyholes. Morgana fashioned a custom lock just for this. I need to find 3 keys to open the door then. But I have no idea where to begin my search. I lived here for more than 10 years. And yet it feels like I'm strapped into a strange land. No, it's not the same house. Searching blindly is only going to waste time. And the longer I take, the more dangerous she's in. I met someone before who had a key. It's before I had reclaimed myself. When I was exploring the mansion alone, think Michel, who was it? The painting. Like everything else in the house, the painting is covered in blood. That it depicts a serene rural landscape only makes the contrast much grimmer. I remember talking to this painting, assuming I wasn't hallucinating. I have a question for you. Are you awake? Please wake up. Can you hear my voice? Please say something. You reside here in the house like the witch, don't you? You've been here with her all this time, haven't you? Then you must know how to get into the observation tower. About the 3 keys that I need to open the lock. I need to get into that tower. Please tell me where I can find the keys. Say something, damn it. Answer my question. Is someone there? What's the matter? I feel kind of strange. Did the witch do something to me? Please get a hold of yourself. Everything's all red. I can't stand it. I don't remember using this color. I reach my hand up trying to wipe as much of the blood off the canvas as possible. But I can't even smear it with my sleeve, let it go and get it off. You're wasting your time. But the thought that counts. And you had a question for me? Go on, I'm not listening. I guess the painting isn't on the witch's side then. The door to the observation tower has been locked. I need to gather 3 keys, I think. That's my assumption since the lock has 3 keyholes. Do you know of any such keys? And if so, could you tell me where they might be? Keys? Please stay with me. You're the only one I can ask for help. Keys. I'm guessing this is probably something connected to her past. Her past? You know, the events the witch is always cursing about. What happened between her and those 3 men? What happened between them? The keys are probably with the 3 of them. The 3 shadows. You must have seen them. 3 men, shadows. Find them. But watch yourself. They aren't likely to trust you easily. The depths of their sin grows greater the further you go. Visit them in order. In order. The first one probably won't be a problem. So tell me something. You're Michel, aren't you? What? I've wanted to apologize to you for so long. Wait, what do you mean? Do you know me? Did you? What do you want to apologize for? Tell me, please. Could you be? But why? How? When everything else is finished, I'm going to need to visit this painting again. But now I have other things to do. The painting gave me a hint about where I could find the keys. I don't know anything about this past Morgana has with the 3 men. I never asked her about herself after all. So maybe I'm going to end up having to do more than simply take Giselle back. Has our involvement with the witch caused us to be swept up into a twisted maelstrom of fate? Regardless, I need to get to work. The paintings said to visit them in order. I assume he was referring to the order I entered the 3 doors. Let's go to the rose garden. And meet Mel. I make my way to the rose garden. The corridor leading there is a mess and the wooden doors rotting away. I can smell the flowers on the other side. Everything is different from when I was alive. From when Giselle planted and raised that single rose. A scene from the past spreads out before me. The fields of once proudly flourishing roses is now withered and grey. Knowing how beautiful it had once been only makes it that much more dispiriting. A bitter breeze rushes past me. Solitude hangs over the gardens like a thick fog, eating away at me. This isn't what I wanted. Someone get me out of here. Oh God, tell me that I'm not the bad one here. A young man's shadow stands out to the side, muttering listlessly to himself. I recognize his voice. Do you have the key? The boy and I have never met, but I feel like I know him quite well, like we've been acquainted for many years. I know how polite and mild-mannered he is. I know how kind, how vulnerable, how human his heart is. However, very little of that boy seems to remain. This isn't what I wanted. Oh God, oh God. Please answer me. Someone get me out of here. Tell me that I'm not the bad one here. Answer me, Melrose. I know that's you. Huh? As soon as I say the shadow's name, it turns to face me. I still can't make out much detail, but it seems slightly less tenuous now. Who are you? How do you know my name? My name is Michel. I once lived here in this mansion. Michel. I know that name. I know it very well. But something's not right. You look different from the Michel I remember. I'm not the Michel you knew. Our names simply sound the same. Oh, that makes sense. She would never come to see me. I have a question for you. Do you have the keys to the observation tower? I do. Would you please give it to me? I need to get into the tower. And what do you need there? There's someone there I need to find. That's all. It may not sound like much to you, but it means a great deal to me. You're not one of her prisoners, then? No. I came here of my own will. To find this person? Exactly. Then maybe you can help me. Help you how? Set me free. Convince her to release me from this place. I'm begging you. The anguish emanating from the boy's shadow so thick it causes me to recoil. There's a threat of dark desperation in his voice. Has he been imprisoned here for hundreds of years like Giselle? Promise me you'll get me out of here. Am I even equipped to judge whether that would be a good decision or not? All I know of him is his time at the mansion during the Era of Roses. I know nothing else of his life. I don't even know if I would be capable of keeping such a promise. Do you have the strength to save anyone other than her? Do you absolutely need the key? You won't agree to help me without it, will you? What? I dropped it. Over there. Huh? The boy's pointing to a thick bramble of roses. Despite flowers themselves being wilted, the thorns are still sharp. It was an accident, I swear. But I didn't want to scratch up my arm, so I left it there. It's not my fault there's so many thorns. If I really want to hit this boy, why couldn't you just said so? Because I thought if I didn't have the key that you wouldn't help me. There's only so much that I can do, regardless of whether you have the key. I cannot promise you anything, nor can I be the judge of you. I see. I do not have enough information to make such a decision. Cheap promise and superficial kindness will only serve to destroy the both of us. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to retrieve the key. What? You'll never get it out of those thorns. I don't care if it's the bottom of the ocean, I will have that key. You're wasting your time. I approach the bramble, reaching out for it with my right hand. From behind I can sense the boy watching. First I attempt to spread the tangled thorn-ridden stems so I can put my arm in without injuring myself. But they seem to be made of iron rather than plant, and my efforts prove mostly fruitless. The only opening is barely large enough to fit an arm and resembles the toothy mouth of the beast. Looking around the garden, I can't find anything that looks remotely useful. I guess my only option is reaching in. That's not going to stop me. I lean down, inserting my right arm into the thorny cavern. Immediately, they begin ripping at my sleeve and gashing at my flesh. Ugh. Blood spills down my arm. I'm long since dead, no longer human, but the pain is still agonizing, still very much real. Giselle, she doesn't bleed, she doesn't feel pain. Am I not the same as her then? That doesn't matter right now. Focus on getting the damned key. Streams of crimson spread through the steel-like tangle, gnawing my arm like a ravenous animal. Where the hell is the key? The thorny stems are twisted and layered so thick I can't see inside at all. As I dig around blindly, I start losing feeling on my arm. It's an endless deluge of pain. Hey, cut it out. You're going to lose your arm. I will not stop until I have the key. Don't ask me for help. I wasn't even considering it. I collect what remains of my gradually fainting sensation and focus it into my fingers, praying even one of them will brush against the key. Damn it! But as much as I search, as much as I dig, I find nothing so much as resembling a key. Which means it must be deeper than I can reach with my arm. Even so, I can't give up. Hey, please be quiet right now. I need to focus. I'm sorry, I do have the key actually. You what? I'm so sorry. It didn't look like you're willing to help, even if I gave it to you so. Plus, she told me not to give it to anyone for any reason. Hold still so I can beat you. I didn't mean you any well. You most certainly did. I'll give you the key, so please have mercy. Trembling in fear, the boy's shadow sticks out a hand holding a key. The arm I used to dig through the thorns is so bloody and gashed I can barely look at it, but it does still function. And so I take the key from him with my right hand. Why couldn't you use your other hand? That's gross. That's the idea. You're kind of a jerk, you know. That's a laugh coming from you. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? I know. I'm sorry, really. But hey, you're alive, so no big deal, right? But wait, can you actually say either of us are alive? I don't even know anymore. I do appreciate you giving me the key, though. Seeing it seems rather important to you, too. Is this person you want to get back really worth going through all this for? She is. She's the one person who ever loved me. And she's waiting for me. I see. You know, I had someone that meant a lot to me, too. My sister... Which one? Which? The one with flaxen hair, like me. If you happen to see her, do something nice for her, please. That I would say is your responsibility. Yeah, you're right. But I'll keep it in mind. Thank you. In the tale I witnessed, the boy pushed his sister away. For an understandable reason, admittedly. But now he seems to bear no grudge for her. Did something else happen between them? Even if it did, I don't have time to ask about it. I'll be on my way. Alright, take care. There are 2 more keys. Watch out though. They're not the most friendly people. They'd probably be even more enraged locked up like this. I appreciate the warning. If only someone like you had shown up sooner and taken the keys from us. Goodbye. That's interesting. Then the keys are something to do with what happened between them and Morgana then. I'm gonna just take a little break to get a little sip of water, and then I'll start reading again in a sec. After bidding me farewell, the boy's phantom dissipates into the shadows of the rose garden. I wonder if he's gone back to Mainz, muttering his regrets. I should get going. Down to the cellar. By the way, if you go into any of these out of order, horrible murder ensues. Yo, hey Moscow Blank. I was just about starting to feel it. Things going all right. I descend the stairs and opening the cellar door. The first time I visited this room, the smell of blood from within was nearly suffocating. We had Michel and Giselle talk to each other a bit and ask each other questions. Then Michel waking up to find Giselle gone and being unable to access the observatory tower, which is locked by 3 chains and 3 keys, all held by, the previous masters of the house in the last door in the doors. The first time I visited this room, the smell of blood from within was nearly suffocating. So, have you finished the game at this point, Mosca? Because I know you started reading it on your own as well. Now the entire house reeks of it. I start to go numb to the order. There's no one here. Am I in the wrong place? I begin exploring the cellar, hoping to maybe find the key hidden away or abandoned somewhere. As I reach out my hand to investigate one area, a shadow leaps out of the thick darkness. It's so swift I have no time to react. My body freezes in place. A shadow stands before me, holding the tip of the blade mere inches from my face. A key. You have a key. I do, yes. Cold sweat trickles down my back. My voice is shaking, there's no hiding it. The shade appears to be glaring at me, though I cannot make out its face. After a few seconds, it withdraws its blade. Let me see it. Yeah, Requiem from Innocence is basically a prequel, and it's also very good. The character it focuses on, though, huh? Yeah, you would get our good old gladiator friend too there. But so many, huh? Really, Mosca? Really? Really? I am actually judging you for once. Oh, really, him. I guess you do. I guess you really do, huh? So, yeah. I guess you're really into Yukimasa too, then. At least she's hot. The boy's key. Did he give it to you? In the Rose Garden, yes. Are you two acquaintances? How could that be, though? You were from a completely different era and country. Who are you? I'm partly due to the troubles. No, never mind. Who are you is irrelevant to me. Are you human now? If you're speaking my nature, then no is the only answer I can give you. You didn't kill me though. If you wanted to, you could easily secure me where I stand. If that's what you want, I'd be happy to oblige. What did you come here for? For your key. I came to ask you if you could give it to me. You mean to open that door? I need to get into the tower, yes. I see. Take it. The man's shadow tosses the key at my feet. I'm not quite sure what to think. I didn't expect him to give it up so readily. Take it. I won't stab you in the back while you're bending over. I thought you were supposed to hold on to this at all costs. I no longer have any reason to guard this key. In the past, I might have severed your head from shoulders the moment you mentioned it, though. What point in the past? That's a question I wish I knew the answer to. Hey, do you know why I'm here? Where this place is? When it is? Why I can't get out of here? What's happening to me? Tell me. I have no idea what's going on. Not a single goddamn idea. Neither do I. Get out. Take the key and get out of here. Get out! I can't bring myself to say anything to the rain shadow, so I follow his command, picking up the key and departing the cellar. I thought I was dead for a second. This makes two, though. What could have possibly happened between these people? The painting mentioned a past with them, and Morgana spoke of the wicked men she cursed. Does that mean they did something awful enough to earn Morgana's spite? Right now, though, I must push onward. If I'm not mistaken, the final key should be in that room. The room with the billiards table. What is billiards, anyway? I should get moving. Once I have this key, I can get to the observation tower. I'm almost certain Morgana is waiting for me there. With Giselle. So I gather up my resolve and hurry to the last room, not wanting to take even a second longer than necessary getting her back. I can hardly believe my eyes when I step into the den. In the middle of the room is a large rectangular table, several balls rolling across its surface, and perched on one corner. Looking down the floor is her. Giselle! Giselle! The question of why she's here never crosses my mind. All I feel is elation to see her once more. There's no room for anything else in my head. I run over and put my hands on her shoulder. Thank goodness you're alright, and turn her toward me. Giselle! Giselle! I shake her, causing her head to droop lifelessly. There's not a trace of light in her unmoving eyes. Why, Giselle? Why? Say something, Giselle. Say anything, please. This can't be. You can't be. You can't be. My mind goes blank. I can't catch my breath. The world is hazy. Why is Giselle? Why did I have to find her like this? Why? I swore I would do anything. I swore I would never lose you again. No, this can't be. A thought crosses my mind. My dazed despair wrought mind. It's probably nothing more than vain hope, but not a drop of blood spilled from my breast. That's right, she doesn't bleed. So this can't be her. This isn't her. Or maybe Morgana has the power to alter Giselle's very nature. Kill her with a flick of her wrist. No, I don't even want to think about it. There's no hope to be found down that path. All I can do is pray. Beg for her to still be alive. Or if alive isn't the right word, herself. My prayers bring me back to reality. Which is when I realize there's something hard pressed against the back of my head. I hear a harsh metallic clink. What? A piercing bang rips through the air as I drop to the hard floor. My ears are ringing painfully. Through the cloud of smoke and confusion, I see a man's silhouette. Missed. Jacopino, a gun. It takes several moments for me to recognize the object in his hand as a gun. Not only because it's draped in shadow, but because I've never seen one with my own eyes. Had I not witnessed what they were capable of through the stories, I would have not understood how terrifying they were. Not a problem, though. I'll finish you off with the next one. Now you hold still, boy. Start running around like a rat and I can't guarantee you a painless death. Wait, hold on a second. What are you trying to kill me for? Because you make too much goddamn noise, that's why. Don't tell me you're the one who... What? I turn my gaze toward the large table. Giselle isn't there. It must have been an illusion, after all. The realization sends waves of relief through me. I still have a gun in my face, though. Curious man you are. Does the table warrant your attention more than me? I have a request. Could you give me the key in your possession? That's all I need, then I'll leave and I'll stop making a racket. I'm not sure you understand your predicament, boy. Because if you think you're in any position to be asking favors, you're dumber than you look. Huh. First off, I don't even know what key you're talking about. I don't believe that. The other two had keys. You're telling me they gave you their keys? Sounds like they really do know each other. See for yourself. I believe you should recognize these. Are you collecting them to enter the tower? Are you going to see Morgana? There seems to be a hint of tension in the man's voice. Though I can't see his face, I can sense the waves forming within him. I brace myself for either rejection or hot lead, but the aberration gives me neither. Take me with you. What? You have the other keys, don't you? Then you can open the door. Bring me to the witch. Wait, slow down. What are you planning to do when you see her? What do you think? She has to... She has to... She's gone. She has to what? What is he trying to say? On the floor where the shade stood is the new key. Curious though I'm about his last words. This makes 3. I have all the keys now. Are you trying to rile me up, Morgana? Are you enjoying yourself up there, showing me these phantoms and watching me squirm? Just you wait, I'm on my way. I give the room a brief once over before making my way back to the chapel. The keys fit in perfectly in the openings of the lock when I insert the last one and clicks open. The chains sealing the door fall into the floor. They're waiting beyond this door at the top of the stairs. I start pondering what I can even do in a face-off against Morgana, which sends a nervous shudder down my spine. I'm not going back down regardless, but she is a witch, and I'm a mere human. Formerly human. I'm not a master swordsman, nor do I wield a gun. I have nothing at all which with to fight her. I still have to confront the witch though, no matter what. As laughably reckless as fools as I may be, I have no other option. I place my hands on the door, preparing to climb the tower where I once spent my last breath. Giselle locked safely away in the chamber at the top. The tower where I first met the witch. No hesitation. Although I have been growing numb to the house's otherworldly ornamentation, the sight of a seemingly endless river of blood flowing down the spiral staircase sends a chill through me. Yeah, this bit is. Every step I climb makes a splat noise. When I reach a window, I look out to see a churning reddish black fog. Now this brings me back. You climbing these stairs alone, just like the old times. Morgana. I waited so long for someone like you to show up. Someone with enough despair to resurrect me. Give her back. But now I don't see it in you. I don't feel one bit of it, the intense hopelessness anymore. Give her back. And here I thought we were cut from the same cloth. Morgana. Yes, I'll give her back. If you can make it to me without losing yourself. I will not give up. It doesn't matter what you do. Looking up, I can see how far the stairs extend. It's just a gaping blackness, so I have no way of knowing for sure whether I'm getting any closer. Around, and around, and around, and around, around and around. Beneath me, the blood river traces the same path in reverse. I start wondering if the staircases even do end. If I'm not just eternally retracing my steps. But I continue climbing regardless. It's all I can do, put one foot in front of the other, and hope I make it at the stop. Morgana. What is this place? What did you do to it? What is it? Why, it's the mansion you lived in for a decade, of course. You look at this and tell me it's the same house. What's with the blood everywhere? And the three shadows? Now, my dear, no need to raise your voice. And you're being impolite, one question at a time. Answer me! What is this place that's immaterial? Even if I were to give you an answer you found satisfying, what would that knowledge do for you? Your objective is to reach the top of these stairs and rescue Giselle. Nothing more, nothing less, isn't that right? Or by chance have you taken an interest in me? Despite never once asking me about myself before. My gut tells me that without knowing what this place is, without even the briefest glimpse of its nature, I won't be able to safely get her back. Without knowing what I'm against, it don't stand a chance. Please tell me about the mansion, Morgana. About yourself. What are you, Morgana? A witch. No, that's not what I'm asking. Why do you have the powers you do? What are you? Yes, I get it. Humans feel the need to attach names to things and phenomena they don't understand. I understand that feeling very well. Which is why I'm pretty sure you'd rather be disappointed when I revealed the truth. What do you mean? What I mean is, I'm an ordinary human. That's not possible. You expect me to believe a human created this illusion? Then are you saying I'm a magician or wizard like you might see in a fairy tale? I would believe that over you being human. Think back, would you? Recall our time together. Did I ever once use magic? Did I control fire or wind? Did I create illusions? No, I did none of that. Because I could not. To you, when you were alive, I suppose you could say, I was not but a simple ghost. A rather mischievous but otherwise powerless spirit. And I was nothing more to those three men either. The witch, Morgana, was never anything but a wretched phantom haunting this old house. But then how do you explain this? Michel, my dear, we're not the same beings we once were. We're different than we were in the realm of light, the era of the living. You've figured that much out, haven't you? That you're already dead. Yes, I know. I know I couldn't possibly be alive. And still you view this world through the lens of the living. You make no effort to see it as the land of the dead. Tell me, why would you think that the realm of the living and the dead are the same? The other worlds behind each door were so vibrant. The mountain itself never had any color. Things were memories of the past of the land of the living, of times forever lost to us. Our lives have already come to an end, my dear. Every last soul within these walls is dead. This is the world that lies beyond the end. It is my world. This is the afterlife. Why get caught up in the minutiae? None of us have a future, so what reason is there for you to so desperately obsess over taking Giselle back? Just like you. Long since dead. She's a walking corpse. It's nothing I didn't already know, but hearing her say it, it's like a kick to the gut. Dead or alive, she still lives on within this house, and my spirit found its way back too. Why then should I not wish for her to have a future? No matter what form it may take, no matter if my choice is erased from this world entirely. Having seen what lies beyond the door in her heart, what happened in all those hundreds of years, I can never let her remain here with you. Trapped in this world bereft of light, drifting aimlessly for all eternity. Oh, so determined, you feeling you need to raise your voice. But you're not going to budge on that point, I see. I ask you this again, Morgana. Please tell me about yourself. How did you become a witch? How did you end up attached to this house? I want to hear your story. You honestly want to know about me? I do now, yes. But not for me, for her, right? Don't be shy now, it's the truth, isn't it? Besides, if you did say it was for me, I might die a little after. As you wish. You've seen many details of people's lives since arriving here, and now you shall see mine. Though I ask you this, will you writhe in despair with me? Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair and again and again and again? I said before, if that's what you want from me. Let me tell you something though, my dear. It will not be as easy to watch as you imagine. Now that you've reclaimed yourself, You need to feel all my pain as if it were your own, to resonate with it. Resonate with it? You no longer have your little guardian with you either. My guardian. She was always protecting me. You'll have a wonderful time, I'm sure. It's a tale that could have only taken place in that era of miracles and spirituality. Wondrous and weird, senseless and stupid, hopeless and tragic. Will you watch it with me? As soon as the final words leave her mouth, I'm engulfed in darkness, not even given a moment of respite to brace. The tower stairs crumble beneath me. My feet have nowhere to go, and I'm being battered by the roaring blood river. My consciousness melts with another. Content warning, we're about to get into some rough stuff. I carry within me the child of God. That is where it all began. The words of one foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from fate? Was it her way of escaping reality? Did she do it for money or fame? I don't know. I have been visited by an angel of the Lord. The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvests. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor. I am with child, though I have known no man. So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell down upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded, for they had thought the drought would never end. As plump drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around the newborn me in exultation. Ah, she is the child of God! Perhaps there'd be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps I'd make a better story if I were to say there were higher forces involved. But all these years later, here's what I truly think. It was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably fortunate accident for my mother and the village, and an undescribably unfortunate accident for myself. I was child, though I have known no man. As if that's even possible. Maybe she had fooled around with the man who'd gone and abandoned her, and she spotted those lies to convince herself it never happened. None of the village men had made any claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and such he couldn't reveal himself. Adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as the child of God was indeed not more than an ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was a saint. And it gave me a sense of duty, of purpose rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believe it's my responsibility to help anyone in need. So every day I prayed. I asked my father what I could do, what was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however, and they will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "If you really are the child of God, then perform a miracle for us." Could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor parlor tricks. They are realized through the power of faith. A lowly villager has no place demanding God prove his divinity. It is a height of arrogance. But the man refused to heed my words. So having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him I was indeed a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michel, the time when I lived and the time when you lived were not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same. So you should understand that in our time blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing ridden with disease, which is why we drain the blood from the animals and purify the flesh before consuming it. But being a saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of the saints who came before, mine would have been blessed. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed, and no one thought she would live for longer than another day or two. The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her. Sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord, she gathered all the strength she could muster to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands upon her cheeks, I said with all the kindness in my heart, "My beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation, and so I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed unassisted, seeing that no one in the village doubted my powers any longer. In fact, the man who accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He received much deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. But of course, being a saint, I forgave that man. He in turn repented and changed his ways, marking me as the true child of God. Now I'll be honest with you. I was ecstatic, utterly elated. I felt like I was on top of the world, and I reveled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revered me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished, and on top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, do you look down on me for feeling the way I did? The actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such basic emotions, would she? But if you give me a chance, I'd like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time, and to a child her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth. So when my mother claimed to so happen to coincide with a lucky miracle, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint. My blood could heal the sick, and nothing would convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It's not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. If you think it did, then it did. And if you think it was all happenstance, so it was. Miracles are brought about by faith. So the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Baseless hope and desire can at times make otherwise impossible reality. The otherwise impossible reality. You understand just how major role religion played in our time, don't you, Michel? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God. As you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for the word of the miracle-performing child of God to spread. Travelers from faraway lands came to our village all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessing onto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. My young hands were perpetually covered in wounds. Running across the skin to my finger, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, my wrists. Before long, they had turned into swollen, carved up black and red horrors, and so I kept them wrapped in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were, in no uncertain terms, gruesome and unsightly, but the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice. And so I came to cherish these wounds. There were some for whom no miracles took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame, you simply lacked the sufficient faith." Thus, such incidents had no negative effect on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years, I continued doling out blessings. One day, while I was offering up prayer, my mother let slip her discontent. "Why must you hand out your miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remuneration. If we just charged a little bit for each blessing, we could be living so much more comfortably." I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such a thing? Helping people was my divine calling, and she was expecting payment? I nearly wept, hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material, and that we were to dedicate our lives to the service of our fellow men. "You're right, my dear saint," she said, understanding. And I believed her. I fell asleep that night convinced she truly understood, and that there would be no more problems. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms, and tossed me into a carriage. Confused and panicked, I stuck my head out, searching for my mother. Off in the shadows of the house, I saw her with a strange man, accepting a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth as it rolled along a dirt road. Shaking and bouncing within it, I struggled with an overwhelming grief and despair. It was perhaps the first time in my life I had ever felt such a powerful emotion. I don't know what, I felt so much despair over that. Obviously it was over my present predicament, but I wasn't sure about what hurt about it the most. Was it that I had been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of saint, had been blinded by money? Was it the villagers had watched in silence as the disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? Was it that I, daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter. So I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks I was rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not by any means think of me the child of God. In the 3rd week, the carriage arrived at a city. It was much larger than the village I had grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to me, which is when I realized I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to a lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly colored flowers bloomed wildly in the garden, as guests laughed and ate extravagant meals. And in addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds. Getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from the smartly dressed men to scrawny emaciated servants, I was led to the Lord's chamber. The Lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, or perhaps they were prostitutes. I couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swathes of cloth, barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked me up and down and with a laugh said, "Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now." Miracles are not something to be performed for a single person's benefit, I replied, shocked and furious he had just said something so utterly blasphemous. In response, he said, "I bought you. You are my property. You have no right to an opinion." But I would not have any of it. I entreated him to give up on his indulgent lifestyle, to devote him to the service of the Lord. But the more I pleaded, the deeper the crease on his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A 9-year-old girl was scolding the most powerful man in the region. I believed it was my duty, that I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as an incredible arrogance. So the Lord forced his will upon me. He bought into my hands and my feet and cut me without my permission, filling a goblet with my blood and passing it around to its guests. A saint's blood and good fortune to all. That was when I realized the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He reveled in their envy as he pranced about showing off his curious new toy. Me. He didn't need my miracles. Neither he nor any of his guests were afflicted with disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood, and it became nearly impossible to find a spot on either of my arms that wasn't swollen reddish-black gash. And soon, because my arms weren't providing enough blood for him, the cutting spread to my legs. I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me, though perhaps the Lord was simply taking care not to take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood, through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came. Literal bloodsuckers, and Jesus Christ. Her mother sells her in slavery. And then this happens to her. Yeah. Hey, Owen. It's always cheerful moments in this video game and stream. Yes, we're currently witnessing a 9-year-old girl who got betrayed her mother and sold into slavery, being horribly tortured and abused. It's not great. They were meant for the sick and the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while, I was convinced it was all God's test. That was all part of his plans for me, his daughter. That if I could make it through this trial, I'd be allowed to go back to helping people. That man would celebrate my success, envy me, worship me. That sinners would face punishment. That divine retribution would be delivered unto all those who had wronged me as saint. With each passing day, my spirit grew more twisted. Would anyone have believed the scarred, bloody girl tied up on the floor in the blanket hall was a saint? Unlikely this was no charitable gathering, but an unholy Sabbath. Perhaps it was caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying out for help. Or perhaps it was the devil giving me my witch's mark. But no matter what cause, during one of the bloody banquets I underwent a transformation. I was half conscious as usual when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale as if he were afraid, which I found curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbing me by my hair and lifting my head. He yelled something, but I was too far gone to be able to make out what he was saying. Suddenly I found myself released from my bonds, but my body had grown so weak from being tied up for so long. I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, and so I collapsed to the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening when the Lord drew a sword, raising it high above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity. "You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin." A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? I was the holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. What could have given that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. I was simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had a chance to find that answer, the Lord swung down his blade. Without warning, without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away. And a second later, I crashed into the stairs, hard. Right at my ear, I can hear the of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to a very real image of a past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in her eyes, of the mad blood blankets. Yeah, my vision distorts, and I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint, a witch? Is what I'm seeing through the lens of clarity or madness? Wait, no, I am not her. I am Michel, no one else. It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe, your chest is on fire, your vision is blurry. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, it's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt. I reach my hand out in a plea for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Both of my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh piece of my skin has been exposed to the air. All I can bring myself to is scream. That pain, her horrible past is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this? So how's your day, Owen Ben? And hope you, maybe enjoy isn't the best word, but get something out of this stream. Happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michel. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me. Then surely this won't be enough to do you in. Of course it won't. Mustering up every last bit of courage I can, and strength I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my last arms mixed with the blood already soaking the tower. So this is the pain Morgana suffered. Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn into hatred for all mankind? Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michel. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands of millions of billions of people living on this planet, my blood is comprised but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind? Now what I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although if I had died still believing I was sane, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission. Are you saying that the Lord didn't kill you? Oh my, did you actually think that was the end of my death? Despite your all big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. So go on. Know my pain. Without losing your mind. Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object. But before I'm dragged back to that repulsive banquet, I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away my consciousness. You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin. Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now. But that's all conjecture. They resemble what could have happened as an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by a constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose a moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into it, and it was knocked off its course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the ride, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. By the time we arrived at a small brothel located a ways in the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and the feeling of those gazes of scantily clad clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far that I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints are supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man to give me enough points would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest, because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me there to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him, though. I couldn't trust the words of a prostitute. Someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror, saying, "Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that." I could not believe what I saw. That couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. The patch of skin had fallen off my face, exposing raw red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs, except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. That thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch, and although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. Explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me. And it also explained why he had said a witch is wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of a dozen banquets I had participated in, my face must have mutated, twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me. Not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. Deciding rather be dead than struggle any longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side. And I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulations. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said if I lived on, I'd eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns though, but if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to do it myself. I despised the life of the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kinds of people who would think they could deceive God, and the women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so passed, my feelings about it had changed. The woman of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first it was just irritating. I was a saint. How could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time I got to know them better, grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whether they had little spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply to my arms, legs, and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started to look almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near it, but he was different. And every time he visited, he would say, "One day I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There I was neither saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time I felt like in my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles, but that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of a god or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me at that time it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt of the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. The women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. On that night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now bandits were hardly a rarity in the time, so everyone was always on the lookout. But we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets if necessary. But cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into panic, screams echoing into the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. The next thing I knew, I was some slave trader for some merchandise. I don't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me or the slave who brought me to them. I assumed the women were sold and the young man slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being walked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tight, you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odor imaginable compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering, groaning, and weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. It didn't take me long to realize what fate awaited these people and me. And when I did, I just sat there in silence. Then for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad. Hurt that I had been taken away from the place where I was happy. From the woman at the brothel and the young man. It crushed me. And no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him because one man saw me and said, "Why are you crying?" He was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The color of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes. Everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly, I replied, "I'm sad because I didn't get a chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he'd asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping on line. They didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising though was how was happened next. The man, his hand shook the rest of us, leapt for the guards, slamming his fist in his face and stealing his sword. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down. And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over. And there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had described it, I would say it was a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave traders' clothes until he found keys, which he brought to me, ordering me I unshackle him. And so I did as he commanded. Once they had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved, and for a moment I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders a couple of times, made sure everything was in place, and then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through helpless men and women packed inside. Blood and guts were spattered against every surface, and those who tried to escape did not get far before being mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place, not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it. And with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me and with a little smirk said, "Why didn't you run?" In turn I asked him, "Why did you kill them?" The smile vanished from his face, and after quite a few moments of pondering, he replied, "Because I felt like it." "And why haven't you killed me yet?" I asked. To which he occurred, "I don't know." Then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then all alone I was surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me. It only ever gets worse. Wrapped up in absolute darkness, warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, and my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me. Bacon stall! Plitter, patter, pitter, patter. There's no end to this deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. When my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Let go of me. Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell or to the mountain of corpses? Now do you understand? There was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions. But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death. I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she's experienced. The massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old had to grow out experience something so unspeakable devastates me. Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me, won't you? The witch's cackles echo through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light. And hideous death. there's a mix of childlessness and like acting like an old person because she's lived for a long while. She's experienced a lot, and then she's continued on. She's seen so many things, right? But also, much like say Michel, there's definitely a sense of like, hey, they didn't get to live off their childhood all, and they never got to interact in any ways where for most of life they have been interacting in any ways in meaningful ways with other people. Lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down deep dark holes. It's just absolute misery, or then trying to punish uh, the three men. An ocean of blood. Now on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind, and nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance I saw a lake, so driven by my thirst I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring what it took me, that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake, smoke rising from the chimney telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked at the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open, and beyond it I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch. By trade, that is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presuming she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over at the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy cottage was no longer of this world. There's no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable after everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so I took up residence in the old witch's cottage, there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers would on occasion pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack open the door, tell them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food, and never show my face. One day a young man showed up at the cottage. My sister's fallen very ill and she desperately needs medicine. He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice which I thought unusual. Curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expression did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the cracks in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair, and upon seeing me he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve you in the slightest bit of a sister's suffering, and moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could do to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would not ask only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance. It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. Hey, you've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline? He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through the cracks in the wall. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything, and when he did, he was his brightest and his most melancholy. The young man had been a member of Noble House, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden. I'll take anything at this point to make her feel better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one. The words muttered beneath his breath sparked my memory. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was. That my blood and miraculous powers that had saved people. The moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end. That I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything. And he believed it all. He led me to his house where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she had been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see those two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them, and so I made a new cut on my arm which had healed considerably thanks to Saul and the woman of the brothel, and let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood, and because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like for once I'd actually saved someone's life. The only issue was she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her conditions worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered my services. Over time, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on few walks, and he seemed hesitant to look me in the eye. I summoned to us out of discomfort, not of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean at the time, and I was not only giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it this way, it would hardly suffice for him or anyone else to think what I was doing was depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place. Regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood. And I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had led into my walls. So, as usual, I took the young man's request from behind the cottage door, but I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking. Are you the witch with the miracle blood? First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave, that I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said, I'm in need of your blood, could you not spare a little? My blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood, the man drenched in crimson wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage, but instead he gave a simple, as you say, and then went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realized tears were rolling down both my cheeks, like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage. I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over. Those 2 sentences were a light shining from above. I want to talk to him too. I wanted to walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more. I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who'd been there a few days earlier, about how scared I'd been. I wanted to tell him to tell me it'd be all right. I wanted to talk to you too. I said, opening the door without a second thought. The light of the sun was so bright, all I could make it was a silhouette. I could see the look on his face with the look on his eye. A gentle breeze blew past, and my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was the man doing? Standing behind him? Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming to my house? Why did he swing it down, severing my arm? I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening. Then my legs gave up. The pain, searing, unbearable, came a few moments later as I was lying in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then that I had done before, that I'd resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous, visceral noise, a sound I had never thought a saint could make. The same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made when the man butchered them. I writhed and I wailed and I wept and I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged and I begged for my life. The man walked over and picked up my severed arm, and then shockingly tossed it to the kind-hearted young man. After which he said, "That's your share. Should last you long enough." Share? What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm, and why had he taken it? Why was he talking like they knew each other? Why? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and still get easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, didn't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up. I had neither the strength nor willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak, telling me things I didn't want to know, things I didn't want to hear, but he didn't care. Nothing personal, kid. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed and I was supposed to turn the other cheek. A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone anywhere who doesn't feel the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I? She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a new church for her. The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during his blood sabbaths, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back? You get to be the sacrifice to keep our church from collapsing, to keep our world from collapsing. Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people, and you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you swallow those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast? It's insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are? So don't take it personally, witch. I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of men. Why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city. But instead of taking me to the Lord's Manor, he brought me into a church on the city's outskirts. Though to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor and the infirm. That was when I learned why he said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they had rationed their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There was no priest, all management was handled by a single nun, who everyone referred to as the saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman who didn't have the ability to perform miracles being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower. It was there that I remember union with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's prophet. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was a mix with a beautiful red wine, a drink that would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained in prison for a long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me, though before long the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. In listening to conversations, I learned that to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks. The Lord and the swordsman and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood, away from wandering eyes. Yukimasa is such a hero. We forced to stand. Oh my god. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. Yukimasa truly is the best. I lost the will to eat, and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high upon the wall. Occasionally a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly, and I'd glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. And soon it was spring. Every spring the church had a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from the far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice who had regained her health, drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice who had betrayed me. I heard the nun's voice who played the saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice who had chopped off my arm. And I heard the Lord's voice at the root of all my suffering. I had heard the people praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thank the Lord for his generous donations and miracle medicine that had all come from me. I propped up on my suffering. They cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower. And at noon on the day of the festival, the church bells tolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And with the 12th chime, I died. As the bells last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open. Standing on the other side were 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more for me to use in the feast, but they arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation. Why, I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating? The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance and said stone-faced, "Seal the tower off. Understand, no one finds out about this." How can you be so calm? Do you understand what you've done? Pinning the blame on me. How nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic. The swordsman, who'd been silently observing the Lord and boy conversing, interjected. You're just as guilty as any of us. Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absentmindedly, I never wanted her to die. What were his intentions? What did his intentions matter, though? It was the betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact they didn't grieve my death, and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, was the final straw. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith, the illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The bloody wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human. But then, In that moment, an actual miracle occurred. My father bestowed upon me his power, or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint. I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous, and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me. Hatred coursed through me, revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them, place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted me that wish. From the garden, there arose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. A young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the vase. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms, but she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself. The witch killed her! The blood of the witch killed my sister. The wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of the witch. You're all drinking witch blood. Crushed by the loss of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork, plunged it into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar, goblets of wine crashing against the earth in rapid succession, as the people holding them fell to the ground, vomiting or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood of an unclean substance. The blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink. And at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman soared down the stairs into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church ground were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much as a beast he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an unextinguishable inferno. Hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves uprising at the Lord's manor look like a game. Eventually the rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given the money, the witch's blood, to the church. He was the one who had profited off it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with the cries of the Lord's head, and he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch his domain as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But before long, having seemingly made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. And with that, the raging furor mostly settled down. But it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets, as though the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, people muttered again and again, "We have been cursed by the witch." In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower, and as if to seal the curse away, in their final days, the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible. That was no miracle either. You can easily explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease. And then when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of that ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed, it was nothing more than a fluke. An improbable stroke of luck. Unbelievably unfortunate accident for the city and those 3 men, and an indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle. That even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what had caused that uprising. That was my miracle, granted to me by God or the devil. I choose to believe that, and that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My curse had brought death upon these 3 men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. So what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I wished for their reconstruction. I wished eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. This was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He treasured his dear sister and he desired a quiet life. So I wished for him to have just that. And I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world. And for his world to be destroyed but love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency to violence, and he yearned to be more human. So had his inner beast toned up just a little bit. I saw to it that he would never be human, so that he could never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have great affection for wealth and authority, so in short those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when he could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, his solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true as long as you always hold fast. Never stop wishing. Never surrender. They can come true. Eternal suffering on all their souls. An endless cycle reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me? That time. That time when, anyway. I think I might be calling it for the day now, since we just got through with the Morgana's recounting of her story, and that's a lot. Morgana is 2000% justified in what she's doing. And, well, maybe not justified is the best word, but understandable why she's doing it. She's truly justified in, those were some really fucked up people. And that really fucked up things that happened to her. But, you know, there's other people getting dragged into this. Which is its own thing. And there is one thing still. Who the white hair girl is. Yeah, you can't blame her. You just can't. Yeah, so many people get dragged into it. Why did all the people that Yukimasa slaughtered, Javi, Pauline, everyone in Jacobo exploited. The white hair girl every single time. Nelly, Giselle, and Michel. No, it isn't. It's understandable. And it's kind of... Who is it helping putting them through that over and over again? I can understand, like, Morgana, they deserve to be punished. They deserve something. I'm not gonna say they don't. I'm generally falling more into the rehabilitation side of things, but... yeah. But is this even helping Morgana? She's still here, still alone, still just climbing for their death and their suffering over and over again. Anyway, thank you all so much for continuing to watch this with me. And tomorrow, for anyone who's around, I think maybe around 12 o'clock or maybe 7, maybe both times I might do a stream where first I'll do a Melty Blood stream, and then I'll, and you know, an open lobby, and you guys can join and play if you guys want. And then at 7, if I do the second stream, which I might not, Wonderful 101. If not, maybe another week we get into that and just sing a fun game instead of this. Oh, thank you so much, Mosca. I'm just gonna see if there's anyone I'm feeling like rating, and yeah, then that should be the stream. Thank you all so much, once again. Doesn't seem like anyone's on, so I think I'll be just leaving you guys. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.